46% of qualified accountants are women.
Yeah.
So actually, from an industry point of view, it's not particularly male dominated.
No.
It just tapers off massively when you start to get into those senior leadership level roles, basically.
Yeah.
I don't want to come across as like a completely raging feminist, but these are things that are important.
I'm happy to take I'll take the stand as being the raging feminist, because I am, and everybody knows me as that, so that's fine. It's not saying that we want all women to be high achieving CFOs and have the careers and have everything and have it all. Actually, it's allowing every woman and all minoritized communities and people to have choice.
We've got some friends that live out in Sweden, and the way that they do it out there is actually just completely mind-blowing.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Yorkshire Business Podcast. We feature bright and brilliant businesses from across Yorkshire. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Jenny Martin. Jenny is a director at Headstar. Headstar are a recruitment agency based in Leeds that connect finance professionals. They work across a varying level of roles, from transactional roles right through to those senior and executive level finance positions as well. My name's Chloe, I'm the founder of OneSource HR, and I'm the host of the Yorkshire Business Podcast.
I'm Jenny Martin, so I'm a director at a business called Headstar, so we're based in Leeds. We're a small Yorkshire business, specialising in recruiting for finance professionals, basically. I've been with Headstar since 2019, so that's like basically 6 years.
Yeah.
Started just before COVID, and then basically locked down, and I thought, God, I'm going to lose my job here because I was the first one in. I thought I'd be the last one out, but actually I think I was one of the only ones that wasn't furloughed, and we worked all the way through. So it's been a real journey. I joined as like a senior consultant, basically.
Yeah.
Always worked in recruitment ever since like leaving uni, and then I've just kind of progressed over the last 6 years. Gone on to be a manager, and then in the last couple of years been appointed as director, and now part owner of the business. So it's been a real journey.
You've definitely evolved in that role, haven't you?
Yeah, I guess that's the beauty of a small business as well, isn't it? And obviously, as the topic of conversation today, in gender diversity, we've got a lovely mix of men and women, and it's sort of 50% women at the board level as well. So that's good.
Yeah, that's great. No, that's really cool. And I know that's something that you're really passionate about, because you set up kind of a network in that vein, haven't you?
Yeah, so we set up Her Finance Circle just this summer, so it's a relatively new thing.
Yeah.
And I guess that's come about because in my role in the business, now we recruit across all levels of finance, but my role is recruiting for finance directors and CFOs and kind of that level just below, maybe like a financial controller, head of finance level as well. And as I've progressed, I suppose the level of roles that I recruit for has progressed. So just in this last kind of, 6 months, for example, some of the CFO roles that I've recruited for, we're talking, 150K, 200K maximum. We've sort of gone, actually, well, where are all the female CFOs in my shortlist? And that's not being intentional by me. Obviously, I go out, I headhunt, put out advertisements. So just to give you kind of an example, for one of the roles that I was recruiting for, it was kind of a wholesale business based in Leeds, sort of smaller company, privately owned. Maybe had 43 candidates on my candidate worksheet, if you like.
Yeah.
Only 4 of them were women.
Wow.
So I'm presenting that shortlist at the end, which might have been, sort of 6. Only 1 of them was a woman.
Yeah.
And then another one that I recruited for quite recently, private equity-backed business. They had a budget of up to 200.
Yeah.
So it was a big hitting role, with a generous LTIP. Wanted somebody who'd done a deal before, had that transaction experience. So I got loads of traction on that one. About 100 candidates on my candidate worksheet by the end of the process. Only 10 of them were women.
Wow.
So we are looking at roughly like 10% for these roles. And I guess I hadn't really anticipated it to be those numbers to be so stark, because when I've recruited for financial controller roles, head of finance roles over my career, yes, maybe there's been slightly more men on the shortlist, but not so dramatically.
Yeah.
So basically I put a post on LinkedIn, which was, where are all the female CFOs? And, you know, would you maybe benefit from being part of a community, a network where we host regular seminars, networking events? And honestly, like, it just popped off, this LinkedIn post. They've got so much traction on it, and there was a real appetite for it. So I thought, well, now I've put that out there, I can't not do something about it, basically. So we put out a bit of a survey, and I sent that out to the women in my network. It was basically asking, you know, well, what do you want from this community? You know, what sort of subjects would you be interested in? What do you want to get out of it? You know, do you want to be a mentor, or are you looking for a mentor as well? Like, so that got some really good responses. I think we had like over 100 people come back to us on that, which, when you're asking people to fill out surveys, actually getting over 100 people taking the time out of their day to fill out a survey is pretty good, pretty good ratio.
Yeah. So it's obviously needed as well. Like, people have got, you know, a shared passion about this, because otherwise you wouldn't have got such a good response.
Exactly.
It's clearly a problem.
Yeah, I was conscious not to set up something that was already out there.
Yeah.
I didn't just want to duplicate efforts. I didn't
Another
see the point in doing
event.
that. Yeah, exactly. So the difference with this one is it's more of a community than just one-off networking event. So I've set up like a WhatsApp group, basically.
Yeah.
So we've got about 125 women in this WhatsApp group. We've got subgroups within that. So like CFOs, FDs being one of them, you know, women in South Yorkshire, women in West Yorkshire, women in private equity, women in manufacturing. And the idea behind is if they've got some, you know, some advice that they'd like to share, if they've got a question, if they want to just meet up separately, regardless of whether I'm there or not, they can do. And it's forming that kind of supportive community as opposed to just meeting somebody one-off at a networking event, then never to kind of speak to them again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And ultimately, it's all about increasing representation of women at that more and most senior level in finance, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, I've kind of thought about it from a point of view that if I was a female CFO and I didn't know many other female CFOs, actually from a peer-to-peer network point of view, that could be really, you know, that could be really useful.
Yeah.
You know, somebody who's a similar stage in their career, their life, profession, and you can kind of share your frustrations, you share your challenges. Quite a lot of the female CFOs that I work with, particularly if they're in fairly like industrial industries, they might be the only female on the board.
Yeah.
So having somebody that gets that they can talk to, I think is really good. But also, like, if you're a head of finance, a financial controller, your bosses might have always been male.
Yeah.
So actually just having kind of real, relatable female voices that are CFOs to aspire to look up to, that can be really powerful as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to be what you can't see, right?
Yeah.
And I've come from a background where I've worked predominantly in male-dominated industries. So it's been automotive retail, manufacturing, engineering, private equity as well. And I've been managed by men. And one of the things that I have absolutely loved about becoming self-employed is being able to surround myself with circles of absolutely like bold, brilliant, brave women that I can learn from, that I can be inspired by, and that I can think, if they can do it, I can do it as well. And I feel like so much more is possible from a personal perspective now than I ever did when I was employed. And that's not that those male leaders were in any way, shape or form bad leaders. I'm very fortunate for all the experience and guidance and stuff that they've given me and the opportunities. But it is that it's hard to be what you can't see. And women do have faced different struggles throughout their careers. And as we were talking about, as you mentioned just a minute ago, when you're at that slightly lower level, you don't really see an underrepresentation. So I'm guessing it's not that finance overall has an underrepresentation of women. Is it just at that senior level?
Yeah, I think that's what I find really interesting. So at a transactional level, I would probably say there's almost more women in those level roles than men. You know, when you're talking about purchase ledger clerks, sales ledger clerks, that sort of stuff. Accountants, so I think it's like 46% of qualified accountants are women.
Yeah.
So actually, from an industry point of view, it's not particularly male dominated. No. It just tapers off massively when you start to get into those senior leadership level roles, basically.
Yeah. And it's exactly the same in the HR profession as well, you know. We see a really low in fact, it's a little bit different because it's more stark. So in junior roles, HR professionals, it's very, very low numbers of men. But then when you get to the most senior levels, there are a lot more men occupying those positions, chief people officers, HR directors, than there are women. It's
not proportionate, is it?
Not proportionate at all. And you think, how can that swing even happen when it's so stark in the other direction?
Yeah. Because, I mean, at least I suppose when you're looking at the accountancy profession, it's 46% women. So therefore, then you get up to the higher level, it might be like 22% women or whatever. But like that's completely the other way around, isn't it? I recruited for HR professionals for quite a long time, and the main bulk of my candidates were women. So it's really interesting that you get to director level and there's more men. Like, it's bizarre.
Definitely. And I think we'll come on to it and have a good chat about it, because there are some systemic issues that contribute to that. I guess without getting into the really granular stuff, on the surface level, it's how we perceive people, how we perceive women aren't commercial enough, or they can't handle the same kind of pressure, or they're too emotional, kind of the gendered norms that we assign to people, that actually everybody's character and attributes are very different, and being a man or being a woman doesn't explicitly make you less able to deal with pressure or able to think less critically or commercially, does it?
No, and so going back to the examples that I gave before in terms of only having one woman at interview stage, but in both of those situations, the woman was the person that got the job.
Okay.
So I don't see it necessarily that we've got boards out there that are discriminating women. I actually think quite often they see it as a breath of fresh air when they have a female on the shortlist, because I think there's a lot of character traits that we have as women in terms of our empathetic leadership skills and all the rest of it. And I think, you know, we're very conscious now to have diversity at the board, and we understand that the more diverse the board is, the better it is, really, because you've got people from different walks of life, different ways of working, different ways of looking at the world, and that can actually help to shape a really, really successful business. So, I think I go back to it being more of a systemic issue, and kind of like the legislation that we have around things like maternity leave, shared parental leave, lack of flexible working, lack of part-time working. I think it's those sorts of things that are really like holding women back, more than the fact that they don't want to aspire to it, or that we're massively discriminated against. There is an element of that. I think, talked a bit about like the private equity world and stuff, and obviously if a board is particularly male dominated, and if they're bringing people in through their own network, then possibly their network might tend to look like them. It might be the people that they go golfing with and all the rest of it. So I think there is an element of that. But I think it's a much bigger issue. Yeah.
And the systemic issues that you're talking about, they contribute to those elements as well. So as a woman, when you do hold majority of the caregiving responsibilities, you can't just go and play golf, or maybe go to like an evening round table for dinner, because you're at home holding down the fort, aren't you?
Yeah.
And that's the way that our policies and our society are designed. And unfortunately, it's designed in a way that keeps women a little bit oppressed.
Yeah. It's interesting what you say about like can't necessarily attend the networking events after work and that sort of stuff. So obviously now I've got a lot of these women that are part of this community in a WhatsApp group. I send out a poll. So I'm like, right, well, looking at doing these dates, what dates work for you? What time of the day tends to work for you? So a really interesting poll was, does a 9 o'clock seminar work for you? 3 o'clock, lunchtime or evening?
Yeah.
And actually, the main bulk of the women came back and said, a breakfast seminar works really well.
Yeah.
Do the drop off, come in, learn, go back to work. And they're not giving up on bath time, bedtime. Now, obviously, I'm not going to do all of my seminars breakfast time because some people can't take that time off work. So we're going to do a bit of a mix. But I did think that was really interesting that actually it wasn't the out of hours after work drinks that a lot of the women in the community were after.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about some of these systemic things and how you kind of see and perceive that they hold women back from progressing. So you mentioned a couple like shared parental leave. Like, how do you think that has an impact?
Yeah, I think that's a huge one. So shared parental leaves, from the face of it, is quite a forward-thinking policy, right?
But notoriously difficult to actually administrate and understand.
It's really, really complicated. Like 2% of dads take it. And that's not, and this is just talking in the UK, right? And you think, well, surely we've now got these, sort of parental roles now where dads actually really want to be involved in the raising of their children and are really hands-on. Like, I know my husband has been from the second our firstborn was born. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're not stuck in the 1950s anymore. So there's surveys to suggest that actually, if the policy was better, more men would take it. It's not as though there's not an appetite for it. There absolutely is. But the reason why men don't take it is because, well, one, it's complicated to understand, but also that as a woman, you would then forgo your enhanced maternity pay because if the dad took their pay, it'd be like less than £200 a week. Yeah. So it doesn't make sense for families to take it financially. Yeah. So perhaps that 2% of men that are taking it, it's maybe that they're pretty well off and they can afford to take that time out. Yeah. So we've got some friends that live out in Sweden, and the way that they do it out there is actually just completely mind-blowing. So they get to share like 480 days of like shared parental leave. Okay. And actually like 90 days is dedicated just purely for the dads to take. And if the dads don't take that 90 days, it completely disappears. So over there, it's completely normal for dads to take a bit of time out of their careers to help raise their family. Yeah. And you think, wow, well, what a difference would that make if we had a legislation that was similar? Yeah. Because I think the other thing is, it's the fact that it's not culturally normal for men to take an extended period of time out. And then it's the effect that I always think about it with my husband. Like, if he was to go and ask his boss, do you mind if I take like 3 months out to raise my baby? I just think like they're just so old school that they'd just be like, oh, I'm not very committed to your work then. Do you know what I mean? But people aren't doing it. No. But I think if it was available to people, more people would, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, there are stories out there where it's ended up in tribunal where men have applied for shared parental leave, or they've come back after a period of shared parental leave, and the boss has said they done things like started to call them the nanny as a joke. And that is discrimination, and that kind of discrimination goes both ways. And that's where those kind of gendered norms and what's culturally, societally acceptable, it holds us back from reaching this better level of equity. And it's interesting what you were saying about actual policies being more fit for purpose. And it's great if you're a high earner and you can maybe afford to do that. And that probably means actually that you work for a much bigger business that has those kind of policies in place. But if you're working for an SME that in manufacturing that's got 150 employees, it's very male dominated, there is no incentive for them to have a better policy or adopt a better policy, because they probably won't be able to afford to administer that and have those men out of work.
Yeah.
But it's a chicken and egg situation, because actually if the government enforced a better policy for sharing those caregiving responsibilities, then these male-dominated environments would really have to sit and think about how they are made up and how they can actually reach better levels of gender diversity throughout the whole of their kind of workforce, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely, because they would feel it if the main bulk of their leadership roles are taken up by men, and these men were quite often taking 3 months plus out on parental leave. They would feel it more operationally, wouldn't they? But wouldn't it be great if we lived in a world where it was shared, and it wasn't just the mum's career that was having to be stalled, but because we're raising a family, my husband's role doesn't change at all as we're about to have a second baby. His career can kind of continue to fly, and there I am taking another 9 to 12 months out of work. Not only does the business feel it, but I feel it. So it would just be really nice to kind of have that legislation behind it, to be able to share some of that weight, and then women not necessarily have that sort of career penalty for taking time off to have babies.
Definitely. And it's not just a career penalty, is it? It's things like a pension penalty.
Yeah, that's true as well, actually.
It's how it affects you overall, like kind of later in life too. And, we're talking about caregiving responsibilities and raising a family, but there's a whole host of other things in there, like women's healthcare, how absolutely shocking it is, the research into things like endometriosis, menopause, how that impacts women, and how they might have to adjust their careers to work around that very natural transition that they go through later in life. And it all has this knock-on impact around what they're able to achieve, not only for their career, but what they're able to save financially for later in life as well.
Yeah. No, really interesting point. And things like menopause and stuff isn't, again, it's almost a bit of a taboo subject to talk about in the workplace. But again, that's through lack of understanding, education about it. But that can absolutely, the symptoms of going through your menopause can affect your ability to do your job properly as well, can't it? And just having a bit more awareness about things like that, I think, is important. We go through it, don't we?
Yeah.
Things we have to go through.
Yeah. Although I'll tell you something, I've never sat and thought, you know what, I wish I was a man.
No, that's
I love
true.
being a woman.
Yeah. I don't want to come across as like a completely raging feminist, but these are things that are important, and I think we do come up against it a little bit, don't we?
Yeah.
I think it is interesting how 20, 30 years ago, it would have been completely normal for the woman to not return to work after having children. It would have been normal to, I suppose the average age of women, taking career breaks to have children has increased as well, hasn't it? So where it might have been more traditional to have women to have babies in your early 20s or whatever, it's now kind of like early 30s.
Yeah.
But we've got this kind of like pressure on women now that it's, if you're taking a career break, you're just a full-time mum. But then it's, if you're working full-time, you're leaving your baby at home. Oh God, you're a CFO and you've got young kids. How are you managing that juggle? And, almost that mum guilt comes into conversation as well, doesn't it? And you think, God, we can't get it right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You absolutely cannot win. And I think this is something that I'm happy to take I'll take the stand as being the raging feminist, because I am, and everybody knows me as that, so that's fine. But I think this is where people misunderstand what feminism is.
Yeah.
It's not saying that we want all women to be high achieving CFOs and have the careers and have everything and have it all. Actually, it's allowing every woman and all minoritized communities and people to have choice, freedom of choice.
Yeah.
What would you like to do? If it's your choice to stay at home, it's not policies and systems and society that's dictating. You actually can't afford to work because of things like a childcare cap. If you earn X amount, then that is great. But when it's policies holding you back, then that's where we need feminism to improve access to those choices.
That's where we need to have a voice. That's where we need these supportive communities, and that's where we need to be banging the drum. But you're absolutely right. Like, we shouldn't be putting pressure on women who don't want it, as well. That's absolutely fine. And with the price of childcare, like in this country, which is one of the highest across Europe, if your other half is a high flyer and you do the maths and you kind of work out, do you know what's right for our family is to take a period of time out to raise a family. I mean, bloody hell. It's the hardest job in the world. I go to work for a break.
I bet.
So, like, I have massive, massive respect for women that choose to stay at home to raise a family, because that is a bloody hard job. But it's a very satisfying job as well. And I totally get that. But we also need to be in a position where we're supporting them when they do come back, and we're not looking at their CV as we've been out of work for 5 years, so you can't possibly do the job that you were doing before. I'm sorry, but if you're a qualified accountant, you don't just forget how to be a qualified accountant. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We need to support that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous when you put it in those simple terms, isn't it? But I'm sure that you have heard that actually many times from hiring managers that you're speaking to. And it's frustrating trying to manage those challenges. I mean, I know I certainly have sat and heard it and had to kind of fight the corner of people a little bit more to get them an opportunity. So we know that obviously we've got these kind of more systemic issues that might prevent women from reaching those more senior and executive roles. Do you think that confidence ever comes into it?
I think confidence is a part of it. Like, there's definitely, sort of stats to suggest that if you put out a job advertisement and, if you see a couple of things on there, a woman that hasn't got the experience of, a woman might go, oh, well, I better not apply for that. I don't want to make an idiot of myself. I don't want to be out of my depth. Whereas a man might be more likely to go, like that. That's all right. So I think there's a bit of that, definitely. But I think generally speaking, more women now have a bit more self-belief and are inspired to lead, want to lead. And I think it's just perhaps a little bit more around the networks that don't support them in doing that. And then I think it's a little bit around kind of these systemic issues, more importantly, really, that's kind of holding a lot of women back.
Yeah. What would you say, what advice, because you've been doing this a long time and you are working with senior professionals of all genders now, what advice would you give to somebody that maybe is at that head of finance role, position, or even FD, and they want to make it to CFO? What advice would you give a woman in that position?
I think it's having the right sort of support group around you. I think finding a mentor can be really useful, and I think the power of networking can be really useful as well. I think really it is about community, networking, having that confidence and having that belief that you can do it. And hopefully from those examples that I gave earlier, in terms of the only female in the shortlist getting that job, perhaps if you're not hitting every single, sort of tick box on the person's spec, go for it. Because you've got to be in it to win it. Yeah, you definitely have.
You've just got to go for it, haven't you? And I think if there's one thing that one trait that I do see in a lot of women, it's that resilience and determination. And let's face it, that is something that often comes from experiencing motherhood and caregiving responsibilities. You really have got to have that level of resilience to get the job done, that emotional resilience as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you ever see conversations at that kind of executive level that do discuss things like childcare and flexible working? Just imagine if a man was having a baby and he took a month off and they said to him, "Oh, you're going to be coming back part-time or full-time after you've had the baby." And it feels absurd because you just wouldn't ask a man that, would you?
I think that really hit home with me when I was on holiday with my friend who lives in Sweden.
Yeah.
And I asked her when she goes back from maternity leave, I was like, "You're going to go back 4 days?" She was like, "Why does everyone in the UK always ask me this?"
Yeah.
She was like, "Well, nobody asks my husband if he's going back part-time." And I was like, "That's so true. I probably shouldn't ask that." But we don't ask men "Oh, how have you managed now? You've got a 2 and a 4-year-old. How do you cope with the juggle?" But we talk about that with women all the time, don't we? And we have this we're asking people constantly, "Are you going back part-time? How long are you going to take off?" But we never ask men that.
No.
And the other thing that came out of the conversation with my friend who lives in Sweden, so they are actually encouraged to probably go back full-time much more than we are. So she was saying that for her child that she puts in childcare 5 days a week, it costs them equivalent in sterling about £113 a month.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, my mind was blown.
There's going to be some people that are going to sit and probably cry after hearing that and looking at their own childcare bills.
So I count myself quite lucky that I've had children kind of in the last couple of years where we've actually got some government funding now. If I'd have started a family 5 years ago, I wouldn't have had the luxury of that. But again, even just the way the government funding is kind of put together, it looks better than what it is. So now from 9 months old, you get 30 hours free. So you think, "Oh, fantastic, 30 hours free. It's most of the week covered." But actually, you still pay for sundries and stuff. And it's term time only. So you think, well, it's not then. It's not 30 hours. It's actually 22 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I pay now for Eva to do 3 days a week. I work 4 days a week. That works great. It's about 330 quid. But when they sent through the quotas, if I had her in full time, it was £912 a month.
Oh my gosh.
So you think then, well, you're not
mortgage.
incentivizing me to go back full time, are you? It makes more sense for me to keep her at sort of part-time hours and me work part-time hours.
Yeah.
And then I was obviously doing the maths, knowing I'm having another.
Yeah.
I'm it's nearly £2,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
With the 33 hours. So, if you didn't have any funding, it would be £1,400 a month. And if you had two children, you weren't eligible for the funding, then you're looking at needing to earn 43 grand a year to warrant even going back to work in the first place, which is absolutely crackers.
Yeah.
And then there's caps on it to, you can't earn one of you can't earn over 100 grand.
Okay.
Which I know is obviously very privileged to be in a position to earn 100 grand, but actually 100 grand isn't what it was, 5 or 6 years ago.
100 grand, you have to start separate. I think sometimes in society we've got this issue where we start to demonise people that earn 80, 90, 100 grand and they're not billionaires.
No.
They're not the richest people. They are paying a hell of a lot percentage-wise in tax compared to those at that next level of where they are, very wealthy. Yeah. And I agree with you. It's not what it was.
Yeah.
And whether that comes across a bit privileged to say or not.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I get that people aren't going to sit here and feel sorry for people that are earning over 100 grand. I totally get that. You are privileged and you probably have a very good quality of life. But when we're talking about women who are maybe in head of finance roles, financial controller roles, you know, they're probably earning somewhere like 75 to 80 grand. If you get a bonus on top, you're probably not too far away from this your sort of cliff edge of then losing your eligibility for childcare.
Yeah.
You're in the FD CFO role, you're holding a lot more responsibility, which is absolutely valued to be on more than 100 grand, but then you're losing this, you're forfeiting this. Now, there's clever ways of going about it. People put more money into the pension, they have salary sacrifice and the rest of it. But the scheme still, you know, is holding people back, isn't it?
Disincentivises people from actually trying to pursue that next level, doesn't it?
Yeah. I had a woman say it to me the other day, like, you know, it was up to 95k FD role, but it had a 6k car allowance. And she was a bit like, oh, might need to position that slightly differently.
Can you imagine?
It's so frustrating, isn't it?
And you know, I think, gosh, them conversations, they should be the other way round, where they're saying, actually, do you think we could get it to 100 plus the 6k car allowance?
Yeah. Which is another thing I see. Like, I see more women perhaps devaluing their worth in terms of their salary as well. So when it comes to kind of things like pay negotiations, when I'm dealing with offers, I think women are probably more likely to be like, oh, well, I don't really want to push for that. Don't know if I'm worth that. Whereas a man is probably a little bit more ballsy when it comes to negotiating his own salary. Yeah. And then you've got things like you've got things like school hours and stuff. I mean, I still can't get my head around the fact that school is, 9 till 3:30. Yeah. But a business, working hours is, 9 to 5 minimum. Yeah. So, and then you've got your commuting time. Yeah. So, what do you do? And then you've got your school holidays. You've got your six weeks off in the school holidays. It almost just doesn't feel like the two should be combined. From if you've got two working parents that work full time and their kids in school, obviously, that is a massive juggle, and you're reliant so much on the family that you have around you, which obviously some people aren't as fortunate enough to have that kind of network. Yeah. So again, women are maybe more likely to go, oh, I just need to get a part-time job so I can do the school run and stuff. Honestly,
from a personal perspective, I've seen and felt that. My sister relocated from Warrington to Rotherham, just round the corner from me really, last year. And it was because of childcare, because her job, she just couldn't do it, and she was there on her own. And kind of now I'm helping out doing school drop-offs and school pickups, and they don't have, at the school he's in, they don't have any wraparound childcare. It's like an extra half an hour at the end of the day, so he finishes at 3. But really, I've got to be logging off at 2:30 to go and get him for 3, to then bring him back and have him till 6 o'clock when she gets home, because she finishes at 5:30. And she works in education. Wow. She's not an educator. She's in an office administrative position. But they can't accommodate
the
crazy, flexibility,
isn't it? Absolutely for her. Crazy.
And, she's had a few different roles, and she's in that situation where she's really desperately trying to better herself, and sometimes it just feels like she's constantly getting knocked back and knocked down, because she's got a child to take care of first and foremost.
Yeah, which is the most important job in the world, isn't it? I can completely understand why you make that choice, because if you're given, if you don't have the choice, you don't have somebody to help with the pickups and the drop-offs and stuff, then you've got to find a job that fits around your child, because your child is kind of the most important thing in the world, obviously. But if you are a finance director or you're a financial controller and you are looking for a part-time role at the level that you're operating at the moment, or you're looking for a job share, I'm sorry, but they're just not advertised.
No.
Some of the more corporate sort of big businesses are doing much more of it, which is why I think we see more women in senior leadership level roles within the larger, FTSE 100 companies and stuff like that. But ultimately, they're just not advertised.
Yeah.
So women end up saying to me, well, if it means that I need to, take a lower level of responsibility just for a bit, as long as I can get the 3 days a week or as long as I can get some flexibility, then I'm willing to make that compromise. And I think that's such a shame for you because clearly you've got bigger aspirations than that and you're more capable of more than that. But like from a business point of view, we're missing out on incredible talent.
Yeah.
But just because essentially we've not got enough flexible part-time roles available to women, basically.
Yeah.
And that really needs to change.
It does, yeah. I'd love to see some more success stories shared from these bigger businesses where they have benefited from things like job shares and bringing in, 2 people to look after one role, because everywhere you do see it, it is a roaring success.
Yeah.
But I think perhaps smaller businesses, they're put off by it. It's scary because it's new. They don't know how they'll manage it. They don't really understand how that works. But we've seen it work in practice. I think it's been really well adopted across third sector, actually. So, yeah, it'd be nice to see some of those stories to kind of encourage a bit more of that, because it would lighten the load with everything from those childcare costs, still being able to keep on pursuing your career whilst you're in this stage of early sort of
2
childhood.
minds are generally better than one, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I would love a work wife that I can kind of pair up with. I think
Or
it
a
would
work
be
husband.
or a work husband. It would be great if we could do a job share.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just not. It's not the norm, is it? And
No.
so people are scared by things that they don't understand ultimately. So we just need to like bang the drum a little bit more. I've actually got a couple of women who I know that have had a real success of being a job share. They've done it for a long time. They've set up the job share revolution.
Okay.
So check that out, because that's amazing what the work that they're doing, and they've got a podcast as well. So interviewing people that have been successfully doing job shares, and they're actually speaking at our next event as well.
Amazing.
So if we could change some of those things, I'm sure we will see a massive increase in women kind of returning into more sort of senior leadership level roles.